It's 8:39 at 640 WBOW. Good morning. I'm John Evans. Welcome to the new program here. Every Monday about this time, we'll bring to you a program called Racing is Everything. That's the name of the program here, and Dave North joining us here in the studios. We'll talk about what happened.
Lots going on, and we're not going to just talk about the big races like Winston Cup or IndyCar. We're going to hit just about anything that we've got time to cover. We're going to try to tell you what happened with it.
Of course, we had action last night at the Terre Haute Action Track. There was at the ARCA. There was races there at Talladega. Great finish there. We'll give you details about that, all that and more. We'll let. Also, don't forget too. We'll be talking to Stephen Baker. He is the official photographer at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Has a new book out. It's called "Racing Is Everything." Ironically.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. We come up with the name of our show. Hadn't even broadcast the first edition of the show yet, and then we get the press release about Steve's new book, and we thought, well, he would be the perfect guy to have as our first guest and talk about this. What a great book!
Yeah,
this. I mean, if you're into racing and you want to see the people who do it, some pictures of the cars on the tracks and. Boy, I'll tell you, I mean, there's some great photography in here.
And while we're at it, we'll just go ahead and just talk to Steve right now. We got him on the phone right now, and we'd like to welcome Steve Baker to the program. Racing is Everything. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing just fine here, and glad to have you part of the show here this morning. It's kind of ironic that we got the same title for both our shows in the book.
Yeah, I've heard that term for several years and thought it being appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you guys have a show with the same title.
Well, Dave and I actually were thinking about calling the show the "We Hope Jeff Gordon Wins the Race Show."
yeah.
They just didn't grab.
Yeah.
No, we figured we'd try to be a little bit more mass appeal than that.
So, what got your inspiration in taking pictures, especially at the Speedway?
I was brought over there when I was 11 months. And my grandfather actually raced for Barney Oldfield, who was a driver back in the teens.
Oh, no kidding.
And I was introduced to Peter DiPaolo, who's the 1925 winner, and DiPaolo took me under his wing and introduced me to several people. And I was hired on the Speedway staff of 47 photographers back in 1981 when I was 18. And I took a lot of portraits of people because you have to be 21 to be a pit photographer, where they do a lot of the action. So for the first 3 years, I more or less worked taking the rookie headshots. And in those days, one of the first rookies was Emerson Fittipaldi. So had a very fortunate set of experiences.
Now, I was thinking along, too. Now, when you take your pictures, have you ever had any problem where a guy goes, "I don't want my picture taken, get away from me"?
No, I usually keep my camera down by my side and really look at the whole situation, especially in racing. There's a lot of people trying to work on the car, and the officials and the guards and all that make an environment that you can do a lot of things simultaneously.
I was very impressed looking through your book how, you mentioned portraits, how you got so many of these, especially from the drivers that I guess you would see them on television, you think, I bet that guy would seem kind of snobbish or something like that. But Terry Labonte, here's a guy who just has a big smile on his face.
Yeah, that's one of the best pictures in the book as far as the drivers go, I think.
I tried in the book, because of Racing is Everything, to show you a full circle of the expressions out there. I have Teo Fabi very frustrated, and I have Labonte and Michael Andretti. I caught a good smile on him.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to make a book of smiles because racing is the whole encompassing of what's out, of success and failure. I have Goodyear, when he finishes second by milliseconds, very teary-eyed because of the frustration of that and how close it is to success and failure.
How hard was it to pick what pictures was going to go in this book and which ones were going to get on the cutting edge floor?
I really just wanted to show a full circle and a realism of what's out there. So being a photographer since I was 5, I had plenty of things to pick from, and I had 15 years of Indianapolis work to pick from. So that was a very difficult task. I wanted to make it very colorful and very positive, but also show realism. That you don't see any. Well, yeah, you do see one wreck in there, but the man was safe. That was Jimmy Spencer when he tagged the wall at the Brickyard. But I thought it was rather colorful because you have a little red dot with a white and black checker now all across. And,
sure.
But I mean, that's part of the racing too, is when people have their wrecks and that. But that's another thing that I don't key on. I enjoy the pits where they have a lot of the technical working on things and fine-tuning and interaction of the crew chief with the driver, and to show, how much of a team effort the sport is.
So pretty much people are pretty cooperative with you when it comes to getting the pictures, and
yeah, I always try and find an area that people don't notice me. There's a lot of different spots, whether you stand behind an official or stand right next to, when Penske's interacting with people, I might be right next to him but stay out of his way and watch traffic patterns. Somebody's on a wheel, somebody's fine-tuning an engine. Stay out of that lane that somebody's going to be going in, and all that's what you really have to sit back and consider what's going on in that environment, and stay against the wall or behind the wall and listen to people's instruction. And even the crew, if the crew likes you, they'll say, hey man, we're doing this or that, or come on in, or they'll make hand gestures as in other sports when people are busy or somebody's having a conversation. But when you see a lot of smiley faces, that's a group of maybe 4 or 5 people that are conversing, and I keyed in on the one person that I thought would make a neat subject.
We're speaking with Stephen Baker. He's the official photographer at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway here on 640 WBOW. The book he has out is called Racing is Everything, and it's ironic because that's the name of this new program, too, as well. Are there any particular drivers that you really like the best?
Earnhardt and Gordon and Stock, because they're very successful and we-oriented people. They've always been very receptive. Half the time I see Gordon, he's signing things, and I think that shows a lot of respect for the people that support the sport. And I've always told people that I-oriented drivers that come will go very quickly, because you see that there's a camaraderie when somebody's down or they need things, especially in the NASCAR area. I've seen people be very helpful. And in IndyCar, even this year, I was out at the Speedway yesterday, and I saw, because of the rookie orientation program, people really trying to help others and realize that you can't do much by yourself these days when there's so many constraints money-wise and financing and trying to keep everything going.
Do you think what Tony George is doing with the IndyCar League that's coming out is going to be adding more life to the IndyCar race?
I think that he's allowing people to really look at what's going on with the financial part of the sport, that things might be a little expensive for some people, and that he's trying to create opportunities for as many as possible to keep things competitive.
Now, I've felt that one of the reasons that NASCAR has gotten a lot more popular and IndyCar racing has not grown as much, I feel that's because IndyCars have gotten away from the ovals and are more on the road courses like Formula One, whereas NASCAR, of course, on the ovals, I mean, you've just got head-to-head racing, and it's a lot easier to follow, I feel. What do you think about that?
I think that also there's a second thing to be considered, and that's the driver. Where does he come from and where is he going? And in NASCAR, they've come through midgets and sprints and different classes, and those men, they race every weekend.
Yeah.
Where the IndyCar circuit, sometimes 24 races, and you're in Portland, Oregon, or Milwaukee, or this and that, and it's hard to have a fan base when you're spread out like that. But they're doing very well. I mean, that's where we're looking at 2 different sports but like what your line of thought is, I always thought that these guys saw these people in Terre Haute and in Indianapolis and in IRP. So, I mean, even in the regions that you're in, you can find Jeff Gordon's an example that came through several ranks that has several different lines of fans that said, I remember when, and I'm supporting him. The other thing with NASCAR, with the numbers, I've never seen people with so many different colorful flags that would just have a black 3 or a red 24, and I thought that was really interesting, almost like a collegiate game or something.
Yeah, whereas in IndyCar, from year to year, you don't really know who's going to have what number, and sponsorships seem to jump around quite a bit, at least among the what am I trying to say? Like the top drivers.
Yeah, the top drivers stay the same
with Penske and all, but you just never know who's going to have what number. And again, like you say, a lot of the drivers on the IndyCar circuit, come from Europe and the Formula One, Formula 2. So yeah, it's kind of hard to get to know the guys in the first place.
I believe that there is this year 8 Brazilians, and I've always been a supporter of the 500 being a national legend, but an international event.
Exactly.
That I'm very excited to see the Brazilians and the Japanese and whoever else wants to compete because of the notoriety around the world. I've been very fortunate to be associated with the 500 for years, because when I go to Los Angeles or Chicago or out of the country, people know in a heartbeat what Indy's about. where a lot of the other sports that you might participate in, you really have to show people a lot of your work before they get it. But
sure.
the 500 is something that I understand in Japan is like the highest rated piece for that time slot that's watched. And I thought that was really interesting that across the globe there's something of such popularity.
Well, your book is called Racing is Everything, and it's in bookstores right now. And in fact, I'd like to let listeners know that you'll be in Terre Haute
I'm on Thursday from 7 to 8:30 at the Walden Books at your Honey Creek Mall.
Okay. I'd like to invite people to come out and meet Steve Baker. He's a piece of history there at the Motor Speedway there. So meet Steve, shake his hand, get his autograph, buy his book.
What a great book!
I would highly recommend.
Great addition to any racing collection.
And one thing I was thinking about, Steve, that somebody could actually buy this book and hang out around the track. And if you see your favorite driver, have him autograph the picture there, you can actually have a homemade autograph book through the pictures you have.
I'm glad you hit on that. That's exactly why I laid this out this way. You'll see that there's a lot of white space in there. And for you, when I was a child, they used to hand out a lot of photos out there, but one of the budget cuts that a lot of teams realized was that they're not going to be handing out photos to thousands of people. And I hope to see the children in that have this opportunity again instead of scribbling on notepads, and that they can better interact with the drivers. And I hope that the drivers like what I've created.
All right. I'd like to thank Steve Baker for joining us on the program. Racing is Everything, his new book, same title too, Racing is Everything. Get that at Walden Books. And I think it's like $24 if I am correct on that. And it's a bargain of a lifetime. You won't get pictures like this with a Polaroid. So drop on by Walden Books and see Steve. He'll be there Thursday from 7 to 8:30. Shake his hand, get his autograph, and pick up his tremendous book. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Hey, you too. All right, it's 8:51. Let's go ahead and talk some racing here, Dave. First of all, in Talladega, the Winston Select 500 took place. Now, early in the race, John Andretti and Derek Cope made contact and crashed into the wall. Cope took most of the damage. Both cars were taken out of the race. The strongest drivers of the race early on were Mark Martin, Dale Jarrett, Dale Earnhardt, and Jeff Gordon. They ran away with most of the race early on. In fact, the television on ESPN focused on the back of the pack mostly because that's where a lot of the action was.
Where all the action was going on.
Yeah.
And do you know now, Jeff Gordon has led at least one lap in every race so far this season.
Yeah, and he and a half another dozen people led the race yesterday. They're at Talladega, including Waltrip, Dale Jarrett, Dale Earnhardt, Rusty Wallace, and, of course, Rusty with 6 laps left in the race. Ran out of gas and came in 20th. That's very disappointing. Yeah. Dale Earnhardt was in the lead when Rusty ran out of gas, and he led it until the last lap halfway through. Mark Martin was running in second, got enough steam to pass him. And that also brought Jeff Gordon up, who was in third, to pass Earnhardt as well. That put him in second. Now, in this last second scramble hill here, Earnhardt, Morgan Shepherd touched, and that sent Dale Earnhardt spinning into the wall.
Big spin, yeah.
And after the race, when Earnhardt was asked what happened, he said, kind of sarcastically, got into a wreck.
Yeah.
And then the ESPN, I forget who, I think it was Dr. Jerry Punch, asked him, he said, oh, well, did you have some help? He says, don't know. Go watch the replay.
Yeah.
And Morgan's response was that the number 15 car, Dick Trickle, was somehow behind him and decided to pass him. Now, Trickle was like 8 laps down, and Morgan doesn't know why he was trying to pass him, but they got the air all dirty, they got Morgan loose, and then, of course, he touched. Of course, the winner of the race was Mark Martin. He takes home $98,000, actually more than that. Jeff Gordon was second. Third place, Morgan Shepherd, Darrell Waltrip, that is, at fourth. Bobby Labonte came in fifth. A couple spins there. Of course, Terry Labonte had a great save there and got a big cheer.
Yeah, Terry Labonte was running great early on in the race. And,
in fact, was the pole sitter.
Yeah, and this is second victory in a row for Ford, so don't want to hear them crying this week.
No, not at all. Your points leader, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon, are tied right now for first. Jeff Gordon gets the $100,000. That goes to the person leading in the point standings, also the most races after 9 races. Mark Martin's now in second with the point standings. Sterling Marlin, then Ted Musgrave there. Let's see here. Last night, Dave and I went down to the Terre Haute Action Track. We checked out the Holman Classic. It's now history.
The 25th anniversary running of the Classic, and a lot of great action at the track last night.
Very cool night, but the racing proved to be hot. The race was plagued by 2 restarts in the first 5 laps of the 30-lap feature. Mark Casella's car steering broke when Kevin Doty's car touched him in turn 1 in the first lap, and on the second lap, Casella had no steering whatsoever. If you were there at the race, you saw the tremendous crash that collected 2 other cars in the mess. Those 2 were able to continue. Casella was not able to, unfortunately. A smaller mishap occurred when Eric Gordon was in the lead, and he touched Kevin Doty again, and that's when he tried to pass him. They hit the inside guardrail. That yellow was brought out also as well when John Stanborough flipped.
That was an end over end.
Yes.
But nobody was hurt, and
that's the good thing.
These cars, I tell you, they're put together so well. Climbed right out of the car, and the race didn't have to be stopped that time, just had a yellow, and they started up again just a few laps later.
And Gordon led the race until the 2-time winner, Jack Hewitt, passed him on the 16th lap and virtually went unchallenged. In fact, lapped many cars.
He was just going away. Once he got around him, there was no contest after that.
And on the victory lane that took him, he becomes the 4th person to win the Holman Classic 2 times. He won his first one in 1983. He has won 2 Jim Hurtubise Classic features as well there at the action track. Kerry Foss was in the running to be the first time 3-time winner of the Holman Classic, but had some problems. Unfortunately, he could not start. The heat winners were Tony Stewart, Dave Darlin, Kevin Thomas, and Kevin Doty. The semi-feature was Kerry Foss, the winner in that, so congratulations to them. Now, the next race at the action track is May 12th. The Outlaws will be in town. They also bring Steve Kinzer. Of course, this show is brought to you by Trackside Racing, and I like to let people know that what you need to do is go by Trackside Racing at 1309 North Fruit Ridge in Terre Haute and pick up some Steve Kinzer stuff. Clyde just got a bunch of stuff.
Got in the haulers.
Oh, did he get haulers in?
With a couple of the Quaker State. I saw a couple of those when we were there the other day.
Okay, he's got the haulers. He's got the stock car. I would suggest pick up a few of those. Get his autograph on those.
Yeah, and talking about Kinzer, talked with his people on Saturday.
Did you?
And Steve, of course, says no regrets about making the attempt on the Winston car circuit, but he's got this Quaker State team together now, and he's going to run World of Outlaws. But they haven't ruled out another attempt at stock cars. Steve says he's going to spend at least 3 years with this team, but I think we may see him jump back up there one of these days.
Friday
and of course, he's going to continue in the IROC series also. And I tell you, that IROC race on Saturday, that was something too. Not much of a race until the end, really.
No.
Jeff Gordon was leading going into the final lap of that race. Dale Earnhardt pulled to the inside. Scott Pruitt came right along with him. Kinzer and Mark Martin just joined in the train. It was like Jeff Gordon was like, where did everybody come from? They got 4 wide coming off that final turn. Earnhardt went on to win that IROC race, less than 3 feet.
Wow.
Gordon, who was leading down the backstretch, ended up 5th in that. Train just came right by him. And Rusty Wallace, he finished 9th in that race. His younger brother, Mike, took the Food World ARCA 500 at Talladega that same day and made an extra little stop for gas. Something Rusty should have done at Talladega on Sunday.
Yeah.
And he went on to win that race. So I tell you, just a lot of stuff going on. I don't think we're going to have time to get all this in, are we?
Well, let's see if we can knock off here. Putnamville was rained out, so we would like to talk about that. But
they weren't rained out. We got rained out, right?
Well, no, the race was rained out.
Oh,
they got the heat races completed, but rain plagued everything else. So racing resumes next Saturday, I should say. They're in Putnamville. So.
I want to tell you about the fine that Ricky Rudd got over the weekend, $50,000.
Really?
When they found an illegal device on the team's Thunderbird. Ricky Rudd, who of course is the driver owner, and his chief Bill Engel were slapped with that fine. Engel's had a bad month. He got that $100 fine in what we'll call a post-race altercation last week with Ted Musgrave, and earlier in the month at Bristol, they found an irregular A-frame on the car. He got slapped with a $1,000 fine, and this latest fine has caused Mr. Engel to be placed on probation for the rest of the season.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Well, Rudd was in trouble last year for wrecking Gordon. Serves him right.
I'm not going to go that far. But a lot of stuff going on, and we hope to have a lot. Well, of course, we're going to have a lot of news for you from Indy.
Yes.
All month long.
Dave and I will
probably be there every day.
Yeah.
And again, we want to thank our sponsor, Trackside Racing on Fruit Ridge Avenue. Go by and say hi to Clyde. A lot of great stuff in there.
And it's the Wabash Valley's leading choice for racing memorabilia. So if you like T-shirts, you're looking for a jacket, he's got racing jackets.
Some of the nicest selection of jackets I've seen.
And he has a raffle right now going on. You could win a mellow yellow Kyle Petty jacket and also a Kenny Schrader Kodiak jacket as well. So if you, and it's only $1 just to enter for that. So
sure,
check that out. About 25 seconds left in the program here. This has been Racing is Everything. I'd like to again thank Stephen Baker, official photographer from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, joining us here to talk about his book, Racing is Everything. See him at the Honey Creek Mall coming up this weekend. Actually, this Thursday, I want to point that out. 7 till 8:30. It is 9 o'clock. ABC News next on 640 WBOW, Terre Haute's first news voice. Stay tuned as well for the Mike Walker Show. Have a good day.
From ABC News, I'm Joe Templeton. Oklahoma Governor Frank Keating says machines will now be brought in to begin removing rubble and bodies from the bombed-out federal building in Oklahoma City. For the latest from the blast site, let's go live to ABC's Vic Ratner.
Joe, search officials have been meeting within the last couple of hours, and before that heavy machinery is moved in, Assistant Fire Chief Kenneth Bunch told us his search teams will try to bring out some more bodies working by hand from the area nearest where the blast went off. Some of those bodies, Joe, were sighted over the weekend, but the rescue teams could not go in and get them because the building was in danger of falling down. Now some of those building areas have been shored up, Joe.
ABC's Vic Ratner. ABC's Julie Johnson in Washington says federal authorities have been busy fitting together bits and pieces of the truck used in that bombing.
Over the weekend, investigators found new fragments of the 2-ton Ryder truck. What they're looking for, though, is the odometer. They think that if they can find that piece, that will establish how many miles the truck had on it at the time of the blast. They want to know, of course, whether that will help them narrow the search for suspects.
Authorities say they have established a link between Terry Nichols and the bombing. The Dallas Morning News says a receipt for explosive chemicals was found in Nichols' home, and bomb suspect Timothy McVeigh's fingerprints are on that receipt. A settlement's been worked out now in the murder-for-hire case against Kabila Shabazz. The daughter of Malcolm X has been scheduled to go on trial this morning in Minneapolis on charges she tried to hire a hitman to kill Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan. Reporter Michael Gargulo tells us what's in the settlement.
Shabazz will plead guilty to some form of involvement in this murder-for-hire scheme, but not guilty to the specific charges themselves. She'll undergo a period of counsel.